Hello, everybody, and welcome to something completely different. Yes, you read that title right. It's Pauper Commander, Pauper EDH, Elder Dragon Highlander. And here, you may be wondering to yourself, you may be saying to me, to your camera, to your computer, your phone, don't talk to your phone. Why are you talking to your phone? But you may be wondering, Trevor, there are only 12 common rarity legendary creatures that you can use as a commander, and most of them aren't even any good. They're just vanillas for way too much mana. And to that I say, you are correct. All of these common rarity commanders are not necessarily that interesting, and you can't get that far. I mean, a series with maximum 12 episodes, most of them just kind of like whatever colors it is, good stuff. I mean, that doesn't get you much, does it? But when I thought about Pauper isn't about, because the actual Pauper format is only commons, but it's not about the fact that you're only playing with commons. No. It's about the fact that all of the decks are cheap. And similar to Pauper, Commander, anytime you get a deck, you have that deck for life. Your cards don't rotate out. Sure, there's bans every once in a while, but it happens. You're not just going to have a format without bans. But your cards don't rotate out. Most of your deck, like, if you make a deck now, in 10 years, 98 of those cards, at least, I guarantee you, will still be Commander legal. You will still have that deck. You might have to change out 2 cards, max. So, what I decided is, instead of making my Commander Pauper decks with only commons, I thought, why not just make it with all cheap cards? Make it budget. The average Pauper deck is anywhere from really low end $10, really high end $40. And you have these precons at $40, and I thought, that's a little expensive. Let's go even lower. We can do around half of that, $20, $25. So all of these deck budgets are going to be between $15, $25. That's going to be our range. And we're just going to be going through, finding different commanders, and the entire deck, except we'll take out the commander because obviously that's something that you want to be able to have freedom of choice, and you want to be able to choose between all the commanders, not just the ones that are like really, really cheap. But we're probably going to stick to some cheaper ones, nothing more than like maybe $10 max. But then you have the entire rest of the deck. That's 99 cards. Well, not including basic lands. So like maybe like 50, 60 cards that you're going to get for roughly $15 to $25. So that's what we're doing. And today we actually did choose one of these common rarity commanders. We are going to be centering around the amazing blacksmith, artificer, thief, whatever you want to call him, Joven. Now, Joven here, he is a legendary creature, a human and rogue, and for 3 red, that's 5 converted mana cost. You just get him out there. He's a 3/3. But on your next turn, once he's recovered from his summoning sickness, he will be able to pay 3, tap, destroy a target non-creature artifact. And this is in Commander. Think about that. Sensei's Divining Top, Soul Ring, Thran Dynamo, what else? Oblivion Stone, right? That's just 4 I just named off the top of my head that you'll find in at least like half your Commander games because they're just good cards. So you'll always be able to find non-creature artifacts people are using. Any Signet, any Key Rune, all artifacts, non-creature artifacts. So you can just start destroying things left and right. And that's kind of the theme I went with this deck. You got a whole lot of just destruction, and it's not even mostly artifacts. It's actually kind of funny because this deck turned into a stacks kind of deck, but also group slug and just kind of like getting everything off the board as much as you can. So while Joven, what does he do? He destroys things. He destroys artifacts. And I thought most non-creature artifacts are used as ramp. He destroys a target artifact. So like not every artifact, just whichever one you want to destroy. And that's important because the main goal of this deck is to destroy just all of your opponent's stuff, all of your, and even some of your stuff. You're going to be killing off a lot of your things. So let's just get right into the deck. We got board wipes galore, ramp galore, indestructible things, stacks things, and removal. And some of these cards fall into more than one category. So obviously we have Joven the commander, and just look at this artwork. Joven has by far one of the best. Like this is one of my favorite legendary creature artworks. He just looks at you with his mascara on. He's just like, yeah, I'm gonna destroy all your non-creature artifacts. What you gonna do about it? Can't even stop me. And he's just such a menacing figure. You could not play him the entire game, but just the fact those beady little eyes staring down your opponent's his arms folded strikes fear into the heart of all his enemies. So let's just start off with this main thing. This is our biggest synergy here, which actually kind of is anti-synergy, which is kind of weird because the main thing you're going to be doing is just completely clearing the board as much as you can. And Joven seems like he does. I mean, he wants to clear board, but mainly just artifacts. He's not like he doesn't want to be cleared himself. But it's gonna happen, you know. So let's just get into it. Here's the game plan. You build up your mana and you start playing big spells and destroying things. We got Anarchy, destroy all white permanents. Now, unfortunately, for 2 and 2 red, destroy all white permanents. That includes creatures. That includes enchantments. That includes, mainly it's creatures and enchantments. And that doesn't sound like much. Like, you're destroying white creatures and enchantments. You don't get instants and sorceries, they're not permanents. You don't get artifacts because they're colorless. You don't get lands because lands are actually technically colorless. I had to look that up. I'm like, are lands considered white permanents if it's like a plains and it produces white mana? No, it's not. It's just a colorless thing unless it says otherwise. But Anarchy, you can get rid of, like, any commander game you play, almost every single one, there will be white permanents. And this is one card that you can just completely one-sided board wipe on everyone who's playing white in their deck. And maybe it's not a complete board wipe. If they're mono white, obviously it is, but maybe it's not a complete. It's maybe you got like half of 2 people's creatures and a couple enchantments. For 4 mana, I take that any day, man. That's good. Next, you got Bearer of the Heavens. This is quite the interesting card. For 7 and a red, you get a 10/10 giant who quite literally holds up all of the heavens. When Bearer of the Heavens dies, destroy all permanents at the beginning of the next end step. All permanents. Artifacts, enchantments, creatures, lands, destroy everything. So this is a card you play when you're losing. You say, you know what, I'm going to play Bearer of the Heavens. And you know what that does? That just lets you completely wipe the board. So everyone's out here, they're building up their armies. Maybe you're lagging behind a little bit. So what you do is you just Bearer of the Heavens, and whoosh, everything goes away. Now, before I move on to this next board wipe, I actually have to show you a little bit of synergy. Now, in this indestructible category, we have this card called Soul of New Phyrexia. For 6 mana, you get a 6/6 avatar artifact creature. Trample, pay 5, permanents you control gain indestructible. Or pay 5 and exile Soul of New Phyrexia from your graveyard, and permanents you control gain indestructible until end of turn. Either of those is really good, because think about it. You have Bearer of the Heavens out, and you have Soul of New Phyrexia out. Someone says, I'm going to kill your bear. I'm going to just board wipe to get rid of everything. Maybe they play their board wipe, you know? They want to kill whatever you want. So, or no, it wouldn't be board wipe. No, forget the board wipe. That doesn't really work as well. If they board wipe, they want to board wipe. You pay 5. Everything you have indestructible. And what are they going to do about it? Unless they have an exile board wipe, then they can't. Everything you have just stays alive and all the other things die. Now this works really well with Bear of the Heavens, because he kills lands, he kills artifacts, that includes mana rocks, everything. So when Bear of the Heavens dies, if you let it die, then it says, okay, well, my trigger says destroy all permanents at the beginning of the next end step. So that is still during that turn. So then you just pay 5, make everything indestructible, all of your things. Now, you just need to wait, because end step, you say, hey, I'm just going to let the end step happen now. Now that I've made everything indestructible until end of turn, end step starts, Bearer of the Heavens, he says, wait, because I died, destroy all permanents. And then Soul of New Phyrexia says, but all of your permanents, my permanents, are indestructible, so they can't be destroyed. Because indestructible means they can't be destroyed due to something that says destroy or to damage. And that's huge. That's huge. All of their lands, all of their ramp, all of their mana generation, everything destroyed. All of their creatures. Maybe they have 1 or 2 things indestructible. Or maybe they blink something. But that's everything just whoosh. And all your things sitting pretty and just balling completely fine because of Soul of New Phyrexia. And that doesn't even have to just apply to Bearer of the Heavens. That applies to Anarchy. I mean, well, not Anarchy because you don't have white permanents, but that applies to any of these other board wipes that say destroy things or deal a bunch of damage. And you just pay 5, and your things don't care for the entire turn. It's amazing. Anyways, let's move on to our next board wipe. Bloodfire Colossus. 6 and 2 red for a 6/6 giant. Look at this. 2 giants right in a row. These guys are just blowing up everywhere because with Bloodfire Colossus, pay a red and sacrifice Bloodfire Colossus. Bloodfire Colossus deals 6 damage to each creature and each player. So, you just pay. So let's say you play this guy. Turn he comes out. Someone says, no, I don't like that 6/6. I'm going to destroy it. Now, because he doesn't have to tap to use his ability or attack, he can completely avoid Summoning Sickness and just say, well, my ability can activate anyways. So I pay a red, so that's just an extra 1 mana, and sacrifice him. They wasted a spell trying to destroy it, and you deal 6 damage to everything. All creatures, all players. It's great. Next one, Boiling Seas. Anarchy, basically, because except it's instead of 2 red and 2 colorless, it's 3 colorless and only 1 red. But this time it's destroy all islands. So it's similar to Anarchy in that it completely one-sided board wipes certain colors, but I like this one even better, because instead of destroying the creatures and enchantments, this one destroys the lands. All the basic islands. Or not even basic islands, just need to be islands. So if you have a original alpha set volcanic island that just OG dual land, you get a mountain and a forest wrapped into one. or mountain and island, sorry. Destroyed. Anything that's an island is just destroyed. It's great. Breath of Darigaz. Breath. Okay, we have a plan. Yay, Breath of Darigaz. This is what happens when tapped out doesn't work as well as I hoped it would. Yay. Deal 1 damage. It is, for 1 and a red, deals 1 damage to each creature without flying in each player. If it was kicked, which means you would pay an additional 2, so it would be 3 into red, then instead it would deal 4 damage to each creature without flying in each player. That's pretty basic. Don't need to talk about that. It is what it is. Chain Reaction. 2 and 2 red deals X damage to each creature, where X is the number of creatures on the battlefield. That's good. As long as there's a lot of, some token decks, they have like 50 tokens out. A bunch of just like sap-rolling 1/1s, or even if they're like 5/5s. You just say, okay, well, I chain reaction and kill everything. That one's a good, complete board wipe. Breath of Darigaz, even if it does 4 damage, that's not always going to kill everything. It's not going to kill the biggest threats. Maybe it'll kill some of them, but not all of them. But Chain Reaction, that kills. If there's a lot of creatures out, which in Commander games, you can get to these points with a lot of creatures, that's just going to kill everything, and it's great. Destructive Force. Each player sacrifices 5 lands, and it deals 5 damage to each creature. This one's really good, because this is where we start to get into even more just destroy everybody's lands. And that's one of the sub-themes of this board wipe category, this huge board wipes, is you get to destroy a bunch of lands. Joven, that's not Joven. This is Joven. This is Destructive Force. What are these tags trying to lie to me about what cards are which? So, you just take this. Each player sacrifices 5 lands. 5 lands a person. That's just value right there. You're going to be destroying a bunch of lands, getting rid of mana generation permanently. It just sets everyone back. Earthquake. This one, if I remember correctly, you pay X and a red. And X is whatever value you want. And basically, yeah, deals X damage to each creature without flying and each player. So, besides creatures with flying, you can just basically, you can say, well, the biggest creature without flying is a 10/10. So I'll just pay X equals 10 and 1 red, so that's 11 mana, and then just kill everything. Or even if you don't want to, maybe the biggest thing is a 10/10, but everything else is below 6, is 6 toughness or below. Then you say, okay, I'll just pay 7, and you kill everything except for that one card. And that's just good. It's value. It's value. Flash Fires. This is the one I was thinking of, yeah. Boiling Seas, destroy all islands. Anarchy, white permanents. Flash Fires, plains. It's quite literally Boiling Seas, but it kills plains instead of islands. So, yeah, you got this. These are your real, like, color specific, but most things aren't that color specific in this deck. Hammerfist Giant. I completely forgot what Hammerfist Giant does. Oh, tap, and it deals 4 damage to each creature without flying and each player. It is for 4 and 2 red, you get a 5/4. So, that's pretty good. You can just deal a bunch of damage. Move that over there. That's pretty good, actually. 4 damage to each creature without flying and each player. So this one is you do need to get all the way around the table because he doesn't have haste. You don't have a way to enable haste in this deck. But he is a good card to just kind of get in. Maybe he can block a couple, he can threaten blocks on some of their smaller things, and he just turns sideways and kills everything. Which he will kill himself if he taps and uses his ability. But that's okay, because you know what, you're board wiping right there. That's the idea. Is that you pay him you play 6, now you can Next turn, and maybe you didn't have enough. Maybe you had the Breath of Darigaz. You can deal 4 damage to everything, but everything on the board has like 6 toughness. Well, you just tap him, does 4 damage, and then the Breath of Darigaz, now you can pay that for 4 mana, and you get both of them. And instead of having to pay all 10 mana in one turn to deal the 8 damage, you just have to pay it all. You can pay it 6 and 4 in separate turns. So that's kind of the use of a Hammerfist Giant, as opposed to the other board wipes. Where are we? Incendiary Command. This is interesting. It is it's a command, which means it has different modes, and you get to choose 2. Those are always, commands are good. 3 and red. Choose 2. Deals 4 damage to target player, Incendiary Command. Or, Incendiary Command deals 2 damage to each creature. Or, destroy target non-basic land. Or, each player discards all the cards in your hands, then draws that many cards. So everyone discards their hands. Their hands and draws however many cards they discarded. And you're probably not going to be using most of those modes. You might use the destroy target non-basic land if you need to. You could just use it to deal 4 damage to each creature as a 1 more red mana Breath of Darigaz, which is fine. You might, maybe your hand sucks, so you want to wheel. It's like, it's just useful. It's a value. You get multiple options. Lava Ball Trap. 6 and red. Destroy 2 target lands, and it deals 4 damage to each creature. However, if an opponent had 2 or more lands enter the battlefield under his or her control this turn, you may pay 3 and red rather than pay its mana cost. So you can make it cost 3 less. So instead of paying 8 mana to deal 4 damage to each creature, you're only paying 5, and you still get the destroy 2 target lands. So I probably wouldn't want to pay 8 mana, but a lot of people ramp. They get cards like Rampant Growth. There's any green deck will have land-based ramp. So you just wait until the green. You just hold up your 5 mana, let the green deck ramp, and then destroy 2 lands that they just put out, and deal 4 damage to each creature. This is not color specific, but it's pretty anti-green. You know, like just the way that green works. Magma Quake. Earthquake, but it costs 1 more red. But it's Planeswalker instead of player. So instead of Earthquake, which deals damage to players and creatures, Magma Quake deals damage to Planeswalkers and creatures, which is good to just kill Planeswalkers. Meltdown. Destroy each artifact with total casting cost X or less. This is something you probably won't be using too much because of the way that your deck is run, but just in case you need to. This is someone has an artifact which is going to win them the game, or maybe someone has a deck that utilizes a ton of artifacts. They have an artifact deck. So then you just say, okay, well, I destroy them. There's this new card out which makes all your artifacts into whatever you want. Well, maybe they wanted to protect that, so they say, or makes all your tokens into whatever token you want. So they could say maybe, oh, I'll make all my tokens into this treasure token, which has 0 converted mana cost. So you can just pay 1 red and destroy all those tokens. It can be good. There's uses to Meltdown, but it's not necessarily quite the type of board wipe that all the other ones are. Mizium Mortars. This is 1 and a red, deals 4 damage to target creature you don't control. It's not a board wipe. But if you overload it for 3 and red, it deals 4 damage to each creature you don't control, which is pretty good. So it's 6 mana, so it's 2 more reds than the Breath of Darigaz, but it deals damage. But it's a one-sided. It won't deal any damage to your creatures. Molten Disaster. X red. And it deals X damage to each creature without flying in each player. So this is quite literally Earthquake, but 1 extra mana. But if you pay 2 extra mana, if you make it a 3 cost with X, now it has Split Second. And for a damage-based board wipe, to have Split Second, which means no one else can do anything. No one can respond, you can't play any spells, you can't activate any creatures, you can't, You can't Teferi's Protection all your stuff away. You can't do anything. And to just damage-based board wipe everything, that's pretty good. Joven of Infinite Rage. 7 red, red, red. That's 10 mana. That's, like, right now, our most expensive board wipes, we have Joven and Bearer. Both creatures. Now, while Bearer of the Heavens wants to die, Joven of Infinite Rage has Indestructible, with its, as long as it has a divinity counter on it. It enters the battlefield with a divinity counter on it. And that's pretty good, but you say, where's the board wipe part? Well, at any point you can remove the divinity counter and destroy all lands. That's insane. So imagine it's a 10 mana, 7/4 with Indestructible. And whenever you feel the need, you can snap your fingers, destroy all lands. That's pretty good. Next we got Obliterate. 6 red, red. Cannot be countered. That's pretty good. Destroys all artifacts, creatures, and lands. This is one of the other ones that destroys artifacts. Most of them don't, but there's a couple that do, and that's just in case. Obliterate is not a spell you would want to cast. You only cast it if you absolutely have to, because we'll get into that after we're done with the board wipe section. Rough and Tumble. Rough, for 1 and a red, deals 2 damage to each creature without flying. Tumble deals 6 damage to each creature without flying, but Tumble costs 5 and a red. It's just 2 cards. Play whichever one you want. Ryusei, the Falling Star. 5 and a red for a 5/5 flying dragon spirit. And when he dies, deals 5 damage to each creature without flying. Not quite the effect that you get from Bear of the Heavens, but still very powerful, especially if you have a board wipe that does 5 damage. Let's say you played your Destructive Force. So each player loses 5 lands and deals 5 damage. Well, all the creatures have 10 toughness. Now you deal an extra 5 damage from him dying, and you kill all of the 10 toughness creatures. That's pretty good. Slice and Dice. 4 and 2 reds, deals 4 damage to each creature. And you can cycle it to deal 1 damage to each creature. You probably won't cycle it, but it's just an in case. Maybe you cycle it. Street Spasm. Which is X and red, deals X damage to target creature without flying you don't control. So again, one-sided, only to a creature you don't control. But then another overload for XX and 2 red, you deal X damage to each creature without flying you don't control. So you double the cost of it. So whatever damage you deal half that damage. But it deals damage to each creature without flying you don't control. That's pretty good. And it's a one-sided board wipe again. Volcanic Vision. 5 and 2 red. Return an instant or sorcery from your graveyard to your hand. It deals damage equal to that card's converted mana cost to each creature your opponents control. Exile Volcanic Vision. One-sided. You just play a Volcanic Vision. It only deals damage to your opponent's creatures. You can take out any of these. Take out a Obliterate, it's 8 mana. You can take out Molten Disaster, it's only 2. You could take out, look at this, Lava Ball Trap, it's 8 mana. You can take out Incendiary Command, 5 mana. 4 mana. You could take out Destructive Force, 7 mana. 4 mana. Like, a lot of these spells are going to be taking a ton of damage. So for 7 mana, you can deal probably 4 or 5 damage on average to each creature you don't control. That's good. That's just one-sided, really good board wipe. Wake of Destruction. 3 red, red, red. Destroy target land and all lands with the same name as that land. Land. Not non-basic land, just destroy target land. So for 6 mana, destroy all swamps, destroy all forests, destroy all islands, destroy all plains, destroy all Urborg Tomb of Yawgmoths if you want, but why would you when you can destroy every basic land of whatever color you choose and just one-sided board wipe all of those lands? Brutal. Straight brutal. And finally, Wildfire. Each player sacrifices 4 lands and deals 4 damage to each creature for 4 and 2 red. Very similar to... which one is it? Destructive Force. However, the only difference is it costs 1 less, deals 1 less damage, and you sacrifice 1 less land. But still a really good card. Next, we got Ramp. Now, mainly these are just... these we have to put land. I put the 2 lands in here that are non-basic lands, just because I was just counting for counting card things. When I was making the deck. That's not really important, but we do have a cycling land, and then where's our other one? Yeah, we have 2 cycling lands, and that's just in case you don't want a land or you plan to board wipe all the lands. You have some in your hand. If you don't need a land, you probably will, but just in case, you have these to cycle away. But we have a lot of artifact. In fact, entirely artifact ramp. You may be wondering, why so much ramp? I forgot. There is 1 non-artifact, and that's Trove of Temptation. Each opponent must attack you, or a planeswalker you control, with at least 1 creature each combat, if able. So, basically, everyone has to attack you. That's bad, but at the beginning of your end step, you get a treasure token with tap, sacrifice this artifact, and add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool, which will be red, because we're a red deck. So, here's what you can do. This one is just, you get extra, it turns into artifact ramp. So we have all these artifacts, because all of our things that say destroy lands, destroy all the lands, destroy lands, everyone loses a bunch of lands, however that works, that doesn't destroy artifacts. The only things we have that destroy the artifacts is Meltdown and Obliterate. All 23 of these... Bear of the Heavens also destroys artifacts, but that destroys everything. So yeah, 22 out of 25 board wipes that we have do not affect artifacts and don't affect enchantments. This is the only real enchantment ramp you have in red, so there wasn't much else to work with. But all this artifacts, we can just use these to play our next big spell. So while they're all stuck behind on 1, 2 land because they have mostly lands and then maybe a couple artifacts, we have all this artifact ramp that we can just keep playing. And I especially like this one is called Colony Gem. When it enters the battlefield, return 2 lands you control to their owner's hand. Imagine you pay 4, you play this, you return 2 lands, and then you immediately play something like the Destructive Force. Everyone sacrifices 5 lands. Maybe you don't even have 5 lands anymore, but you just played a Colony Gem, got 2 lands back, kill everyone, take away everyone's lands with Destructive Force, and then replay your land. This is just value. There's value. There's a lot of value, because all of these things will not be destroyed from most of these board wipes. And that brings us into our next section, Indestructible. These are all creatures that just have ways to be indestructible. So no matter how many times we board wipe, damage-based or destruction-based, we don't exile. We don't sacrifice. We just destroy. So it doesn't matter. So these will not destroy these creatures. We have Creepy Doll. 1/1, indestructible. And every time it deals combat damage to a creature, 50% chance to kill that creature. You flip a coin. Win the flip, destroy the creature. Lose the flip, nothing happens. So sure, it costs 5 for a 1/1, which sucks, but it's indestructible, and you just start killing creatures. Maybe even if it's just every other turn, you kill a creature. That's value. Darksteel Gargoyle. Indestructible, flying, 7 for a 3/3. Not else to say. He's flying, so He will block your opponent's flyers, and he just blocks damage. Darksteel Mirror, 3 for a 0/1 indestructible. Sentinel, Darksteel Sentinel, 6 for a 3/3 vigilance indestructible, and flash, which means you can cast it whenever you can cast an instant, which is useful, but I mean not necessarily too useful, but it's nice. Manor Gargoyle, 5 for a 4/4 defender, indestructible as long as it has defender, which is always probably in our case. But if you really need to pay 1, he loses defender, gains flying. So even if, let's say, someone's like about to attack, you have something like Earthquake, which deals damage to creatures without flying. Even if you pay 1, make him flying, make him lose defender, which he loses indestructible, he then gains flying, so he avoids some of those other board wipes anyways. Neogen, we already talked about him. Soul of New Phyrexia, we already talked about him. And finally, Squee the Immortal. You may cast Squee from your graveyard or from exile. And Squee's just an interesting card that you can just get out there. Maybe you're not, if you're, like, you just need a blocker. So, after you board wipe, then you play Squee. And you just have this 2/1 out there to block, to deal damage, do whatever you need to do. And if someone says sacrifice a creature, sacrifice Squee. Why not? He's just there to keep coming back, because you cannot kill Squee. We will now, let's see, what else? We got removal. This is our just single target removal. Echoing Ruin. Destroy target artifact for 1 in a red. It's a sorcery. Destroy target artifact and all other artifacts that share that with the same name as that artifact. Sensing Divine up top. Soul Ring probably is your target on this. But even if you just pay 2, destroy target artifact, that can be value. Grenzo's Rebuttal. Put a 4/4 red ogre token onto the battlefield. Starting with you, each player chooses an artifact, a creature, and a land from among the permanents controlled by the player to his or her left. Destroy each permanent chosen this way. So you get a 4/4, which is because you're killing a bunch of things in this deck anyways. But and then people just all destroy just a bunch. You just destroy what? If you have a table of 4 things each, that's 16. You just destroyed 16 things. Sure, 4 of them are yours, but most of your things are either indestructible, maybe they destroy one of your things there. Odds are you don't even... Yeah, artifact, creature, and a land. So 3 things, so 12 things. 12 things, and it's not that bad. Grenzo's Rebuttal is not that bad for you. And it can be pretty bad, because whoever's winning, then the person to their right who chooses what to destroy of them, they just kill the biggest things. It's good. We got Meteor Golem, 7. When he enters the battlefield, destroy a non-land permanent an opponent controls. That's just value, destroy whatever you want, and he's a 3/3. He's gonna die, but he does destroy something. Next we have Detritivore. 2 and 2 red. His power and toughness are equal to the number of non-basic land cards in your opponent's graveyards, which is interesting on its own. Like, there's probably going to be a couple non-basic lands in the graveyards, but not many. But he has Suspend for X and 3 red. So if you pay 4 and then X extra, he will basically be in exile for X turns. And each turn after you remove one of those suspend counters from him. And every time you do that, you destroy a non-basic land, which means when he finally does enter the battlefield, he will have however many suspend counters you put on. You just destroyed all those lands, so now he enters with that much power. So it's good, and it's just a good way to destroy some non-basic lands. Destroy your Gaia's Cradles, your Urborgs, your what else is there? I don't know. You just destroy dual lands, destroy whatever you need. Finally, Bomb Squad. 3 into red, put a fuse counter on target creature. At the beginning of your upkeep, put a fuse counter on each creature with a fuse counter on it. And whenever a creature has 4 or more fuse counters on it, remove all fuse counters from it and destroy it. That creature deals 4 damage to each controller. Now, this is only if you really need to. He's probably going to die. He's probably not going to do much. But if you are somehow not playing any board wipes, you put in a bomb squad. You just put on a fuse counter on something, and then it's just a slow ticking time bomb, and it just eventually blows up in its opponent, in its controller's face, which is pretty good. It's not necessarily the best in this deck because of all the board wipes, but it's just something to deal damage and kill things as it needs to. Stacks. Stacks is resource denial. There is a decent amount of resource denial. We've talked about Boiling Seas, Destroy Islands. Burning Earth. Whenever a player taps a non-basic land for mana, deals 1 damage to that player. We have 2 non-basic lands in the entire deck. Most people have at least 6, 7. So they're going to be tapping non-basic lands all the time because they need them. If we have this out or we see it, then we just cycle away our non-basic lands. But every time they tap those non-basic lands for mana, 1 damage, 1 damage. Start racking up. Citadel of Pain. 2 and a red for an enchantment. At the end of each player's turn, it deals X damage, where X is the number of untapped lands he or she controls. This is really good because we're not worried about instant speed. We're not worried about playing things on other people's turns. Sure, maybe we have some of these things that are a couple of board wipes that are instants. Some of them are instants. I think most of them are sorceries. I didn't check that too much because it doesn't matter. Most of them you're going to be playing. If you play it on opponent's turn, so what? If you play it on your turn, so what? It doesn't make much of a difference most of the time. But Citadel of Pain, your opponents will probably want to be playing things instant speed, using their mana instant speed. So you can just start dealing damage based on those untapped lands that people aren't using. Or you force them to tap their lands and they just take, so they don't take that damage. Destructive Force, we talked about that. Destroy lands. Flash Fires, talked about that. Mana Barbs. Whenever a player taps any land for mana, deals 1 damage. Now imagine you have Mana Barbs, and imagine you have Citadel of Pain. Now, for each land someone controls. So maybe you didn't get to your destroy lands things. But now for each land every single person controls, if you tap it for mana, they take 1 damage. If you leave it untapped, you take 1 damage. So no matter what, you're taking a damage from that land, and that's just going to rack up damage. Obliterate. Power Surge. For 2 red mana and enchantment, during each player's upkeep, it deals 1 damage to that player for each land he or she controls that was untapped at the beginning of the turn before the untap phase. That sounds kind of confusing, and it probably will be to your play grips. You're going to have to explain this one. Basically, so before you untap, you count how many lands you have that are untapped. Then you untap everything, you go to your upkeep. Now, however many lands you counted that were untapped, you take that much damage. So now, if you have this out, you have Mana Barbs, and you have Citadel of Pain. Now you have to tap all your lands on your turn, because you take 1 damage for each of them, or you leave them untapped, you take another damage, and then any more you leave untapped, you take more damage just from Power Surge. So it's every land you're just racking up damage for people using lands, you're racking up damage for people not using lands. They gotta choose which way they're going. Total War. This is a fun one. 3 and a red. Whenever any player declares an attack, destroy all untapped non-wall creatures that player controls that don't attack. Do not destroy creatures the player did not control at the beginning of the turn. So basically what this means is, besides the creatures that he just played this turn, any creature that doesn't attack is destroyed if he chooses to attack. And imagine that with something like, with something like Trove of Temptation, they have to attack, which means they have to attack with everything or it gets destroyed. That's straight up power, combo, good. And even without Trove of Temptation, now they either go all in or they have to hold everything back. And it's fun. Wake of Destruction, talked about that. War's Toll. Whenever an opponent taps a land for mana, tap all lands that player controls. And this is enchantment for 3 and a red. So whenever an opponent taps a land for mana, tap all lands that player controls. If a creature an opponent controls attacks, all creatures that opponent controls attacks if able. So this one doesn't deal damage, but it forces people to say, I attack with everything if I attack. And if I tap a mana for lands, I have to tap all my lands, which means I have to use all that mana in that phase. Because every time a phase ends, if you move from main phase to combat, if you move from upkeep to draw phase, if you move from combat to your second main phase, no matter what, all that mana that you had goes away. So if you tap one land, you have to tap all of them, and you have to use all that mana that phase. That's good. And Wildfire, which we talked about. The only card we haven't talked about is Chandra Pyrogenius, which I was surprised there's a planeswalker that you could get for under $1. Not an oversized foil, just a straight up planeswalker for under $1. And it's not amazing, but because all of our destruction doesn't destroy planeswalkers except for Magmaquake, that's all 24 of these, except for one. So you have like 20, 21, 22 at least out of 25 that don't affect this. And it just deals 2 damage to each opponent, plus 2. Starter. For 4 and 2 red, it's a 5 loyalty planeswalker. Comes in with 5 loyalty. That's good. Now, plus 2 loyalty deals 2 damage to each opponent. That's pretty good. Minus 3 deals 4 damage to target creature. Okay, that's not amazing. And minus 10, the ultimate. So if you play her first turn, plus 2. Second turn, plus 2. Third turn out, you have to plus 2 again. So if you have her out for a 4th turn, you get to ultimate, which is deal 6 damage to target player and each creature he or she controls. Which, in most games, is a kill target player button, essentially. And that's just good to just kill things. So this is the deck. This is what we got. We got board wipes, we got ramp, indestructible things, removal. We have ways to hurt people for their mana. And it all comes back to Joven. Destroying target non-creature artifact. And compared to the rest of the stuff in this deck, it seems kind of underpowered. Because it kind of is. I mean, he's not the greatest commander, but the fear he strikes into his opponent's eyes with all of his mascara. Why is he wearing mascara? Or first off, why are his eyes like that? And second off, if he's wearing mascara, good for you. More power to you. But I doubt that Wizards would create a character who wears mascara. Anyways. Joven can destroy things. This deck is built around destroying a bunch of things. But not built around destroying artifacts, because you want to keep yours alive to then use their mana to destroy other things. But it's kind of weird, because in a way, if you can destroy target non-creature artifacts, you can start killing your opponent's things. You have things like the which one? Echoing Ruin. Yeah. You have things like Meteor Golem. You have things to deal with artifacts. But they're not your main goal. Even though Joven does have that artifact destruction, he's not the main focus. The main focus is these 25 cards right here that are just going to be wreaking havoc on the entire board throughout the game. And that's what this deck is about. You're not going to win. You're probably not going to win most games you play. Because one, it's a way underpowered, super cheap deck. 2, you're playing with a 5-cost 3/3 commander who destroys something every turn, which is decent, but it's still 3 mana and you destroy something. And it's just not the greatest. It's not the best deck, and you're playing a red deck which just deals a bunch of damage and kills a bunch of things. You're not anybody's friend. No one's like, oh, hey, you killed my thing? Thanks. Wow. My commander just got out, and then you said board wipe, and you flash fired and killed all my planes. Thanks. That doesn't happen. You're not making any friends with this deck. This deck is mean, but it's fun. So give it a whirl. I'll leave the deck builder in the description. And final thing, mana base. We have obviously the 2 lands and 36 mountains. I did not include mountains in the cost of this deck, but I looked and I went through the whole deck. I basically just I put all the cards in a list and I put them into Card Kingdom. And I said, you know what? I don't even want any of those moderately used. I don't want the really used. I only want near mint or lightly used cards. And this entire deck, excluding basic lands, because I assume that you already have all the basic lands you need, which if you don't, they're like 16 cents a card, or you can get them at any, like, just get like a deck builder's toolkit. Comes with all the basic lands you need. Maybe not, actually. 36 basic lands. That's not a problem. That shouldn't be a problem. But every other non-basic land card complete. So to complete this deck, $23.79. Every card is light play, near mint, or mint. That is the power. And this is not the worst deck. It's not like complete jank. It has decent strategy. It has some power to it. And it has all that ramp so you can get to those big spells fast. So you got all this for only $23.79. You were thinking maybe you're going to pick up your Hamanatu Fate Shifter deck for $40. Maybe you wanted Lord Windgrace, wanted anything. Who cares? Because now you can get Joven. Good old Joven for $23.79. I'll see you all next time. Bye-bye.